Good afternoon, everyone. We're just going to give it a minute or two before we start, just to give a chance for people to join us. Get this started soon.
Mm.
All right, perfect. Let's get started. So, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. My name is Ashraf Adnan. I'll be co-hosting today's session. Joining me today is Girish Sharma, our Azure pre-sales engineer who works closely with partners and customers on Azure design and deployment decisions. We're excited to spend the next hour discussing how organizations are using Microsoft Azure to modernize their environments, specifically through cloud migrations, strengthening security posture, and enabling secure and scalable virtual desktop and infrastructure. But together, we'll focus less on theory and more on practical use cases. So today, we will look at three customer scenarios, the challenges they are facing, and how Azure helps address those challenges in a secure and cost-effective way. Before we get started, a quick reminder that Ingram Micro's professional services team is here to assist you with your projects. You can leverage them for discovery and assessments, migrations, and app modernization projects. They also offer proof of concept services, security and cost optimization services, and much more. So please reach out to your Ingram Micro Azure representative for more information. So as we go through the session, we do encourage you to submit your questions in the chat, and we'll leave time at the end of the session to address them. With that, let's get started. So today we put together the following customer scenarios. So customer one is a migration case. We'll be discussing ADFS and SQL on Azure. Customer two is a security case, and we'll be talking about Defender for Cloud. And customer three is a VDI case, and we'll be discussing Azure Virtual Desktops. Next slide, please. All right, so the first customer case is Contoso. Uh, Contoso is a health equipment manufacturing company that designs and builds diagnostic and monitoring devices for clinics and hospitals. Their on-premise environment is aging, and they want to modernize while meeting strict data retention requirements for device test logs and customer service records. Currently, they're running 3 Hyper-V VMs running Windows Server 2012 R2. They've recently completed an assessment using the Azure Migrate Server assessment and got the below recommendations. AD D1V2, FSD to SV3, Apps equal B4 SV3, and 2 terabytes of blob storage. I'll pass it on to my colleague Girish to walk us through this use case.
Thank you, Ashraf. Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome once again to all the attendees. Really appreciate everybody taking time and joining us in today's session. My name is Girish Sharma. Also, as a follow-up, if you need any further clarification on the topics that we're going to discuss, please reach out to your respective sales rep and we'll be happy to take the conversation forward. Now, coming to the scenario of Contoso Incorporation, now, after adoption of virtualization technology, the biggest decision any company is going to make is to transition to cloud. There can be many reasons why they're looking into moving their workloads into cloud. It can be because of their hardware coming for refresh. Maybe they're facing capacity constraints, or it can be as simple as that the decision maker, they have decided to move away from long-term contracts and going to adopt pay-as-you-go kind of billing. But regardless of whatever is the driving force, every migration, whether it's big or small, needs to be properly analyzed and executed. And if you look at any migration journey, it can be divided into 3 phases. In the first step, we need to discover the resources so that we have a better understanding of what we are dealing with. In the second phase, which is the assessment, we need to assess the environment based on our requirement. With so many tiers of services to choose from, what is the right recommendation based on my business needs is an important consideration, and that is what decides it into this phase. And then finally, if it makes sense operationally as well as financially, we can move to the last step, which is to actually migrate these resources. Now, there are a lot of tools in the market which can help you achieve that. Azure Migration Services is an end-to-end tool which can cover all these three different phases. It's infrastructure agnostic. It means you can run any application, any operating system, whether you're running your applications on bare metal or virtualized, it can cater to all these different environments. It also integrates with other services such as Azure Migrate VMware, as well as database migration services, or even GitHub Copilot app modernization. And if you have enabled your on-premises services and enroll them through Azure Arc, Azure Migrate also integrates with that. And your end goal can be anything. It can be an infrastructure as a service, or you can utilize platform as a service. It does not matter. Azure Migration Services is an end-to-end migration tool that can assess across all these different phases of your migration. Now, if you look at any cloud environment, your cost is going to come from three pillars. You have compute, you have storage, and if you have networking. Now, when you run this server assessment, this tool is going to analyze cost across all these three different pillars. And you can run these assessment by utilizing agent-based, or you can utilize also without any agent. The only difference between the two is that with the agent-based method, you also get dependency map analysis. And the advantage of that is that, let's say that you have a multi-tier application and you're trying to move them, it will make a recommendation that it will be better to move them in not in phases, but together so that you don't leave anything which has dependency on the second server. So it will also give you a dependency map analysis, which is not part of the agentless method. But beyond that, you'll get complete visibility into where your cost is going to come from. And then you can make the decision intelligently that you want to move those workstation into cloud or not. Now, in case of Contoso Incorporation, they have gone through this assessment, and the tool has made recommendation that what they should be utilizing. So now let's look at how this will ultimately cost Contoso Incorporation at the end of the month, and then we'll follow that up with the deployment step and how to utilize this service. So for that, I'm going to switch over to the Azure pricing calculator. And this tool, by the way, is generally available and our go-to tool, which we utilize this for, for costing any opportunity. Let me log into this. And they have a couple of machines as well as storage account that they're going to utilize. So let me start with the first one because they're going to move with their Active Directory server. So for that, I'm going to go to the virtual machine tab and let's click on the add button. I can always name this machine and pick the region of your preference. In this case, we're talking about Canada Central. So I'm going to pick Canada. By the way, you have two regions to choose from. You have Central, which is in Toronto, and you have Canada East, which is in Quebec City. And for this workload, it's a D1 V2. That's a recommendation from the migration services. And the storage we're going to utilize for this is a regular spinning hard drive, which is your standard HDD. And the size of the storage is 128 gig. So let me also add that. So that's machine number one. And they also have file servers. So let me add that too. And for this, the recommendation is to utilize D2SV3. And the storage associated will be a 1 terabyte. And in this case, I'm going to use a premium. And the last machine is their SQL Server. Let's also add that. In this case, they're going to use SQL Standard, and the workload recommendation for this is D4SV3. I'm going to pick this too. And storage attached to this is a 128 gig. And lastly, I'm going to add a storage. They are going to utilize 2 terabyte of storage, and the tier they're going to use is a cold tier because this data is not going to exist frequently. So for that, let me go and search for storage account. I'm going to pick the redundancy, the default, which is your locally redundant, and the storage amount is 2 terabytes. So I'm going to add and change it to 2 terabyte. And you can always change the currency. So by default, it's in US dollars. So I'm going to change it in Canadian. And you can save this estimate and give this to your end customer because the price that you're going to see is in end customer pricing. And if you want, you can also export this estimate in an Excel sheet if you want to send it that way. But along with this, there is also a couple of more options, such as you can also go and utilize reservation saving plan, which I'm going to talk about later in the workshop today. But this is the way you're going to create an estimate for Contoso Incorporation. And if you want, you can also customize this by giving the name for this company here, and then this will be saved for your future reference. But this is the way you're going to price out any opportunity, in this case for Contoso Incorporation. So with this pricing in place, let's look into how you go and deploy the migration services on the Azure portal. So you can see I'm logged on to the Azure portal and I have a full access, which is owner access, which is the highest privilege you can get in this. Let me go and search for Azure Migrate in the global search bar. So any migration services start by creating a project, but this is your control plane where you can control all these projects. So let's start by clicking on Create Project. The first option is to pick your subscription. So in this case, I only have one, so I'm going to take this default. Then you need to create a resource group. If you've been utilizing Azure, I'm pretty sure that you're pretty familiar with resource group, which is like a logical container where all the resources going to get deployed. If you want, I can go and create a new. And you can give the project name. Let's name it, let's say, and pick the geography. In this case, I'm talking about Canada Central. So this is for the metadata that will be stored. And it's as simple as clicking on the create button. So your project will be deployed. So you can see you can keep a track of by clicking on the notification, but you can see on this that deployment is in progress. So it should not take that long. Okay, so deployment was successful, but I already have a couple of other projects just to show you how that's going to look like. Let me take example of, actually, let me go back. Or I can go to the resource group also to see the project that was deployed, right? But let me go back to the Azure Migrate service. So these are all the projects in my subscription. I'm going to take example of, let's say, project 101. And the first thing that you're going to do after your project is created is to deploy an appliance. And I want the all inventory button. You can click on the discover button and you can see that there are 3 options. In this case, we talked about using appliance, but you can also use a collector or you can also use an import service. For example, you can export this CSV file utilizing an RV tool, which can be uploaded. But let's take an example of the appliance. And because it's an infrastructure agnostic, Does not matter what kind of environment you're utilizing. If it's physical, virtualized, it can cater to any environment. Now, in this case, for Contoso, it's virtualized by utilizing Hyper-V. So I'm going to pick that. And the first thing that you need to do is give the name for the appliance. You'll need to generate a key, and then you're going to download this VHT file, which can be deployed as a VM. And then you're going to register your appliance to the Hyper-V. And this is a tool which will be responsible for running the discovery as well as assessment. Now, once you do that discovery, it will show you that it will compile a list of all the resources that you have in your environment. You can see I did a discovery here, and these are all the machines that I have. So after the discovery is done, the next step will be to create an assessment. For that, you can go and select all these different workloads which has been discovered, and you can click on the Create Assessment button. You can start by giving the assessment name. And at this stage, I'm going to add the workloads. And it will guide you all these different steps, as you can see. And you can pick your target location. So in this case, we are talking about Canada Central, your default environment. You can also pick the currency. And this complete business case can be created and can be positioned to the decision makers. And you can see that you also have a couple of other options. You can also compile this business case based on pay as you go. And also you can apply reservation as well as savings plans options. So all these things can be done and can be part of your business case, which can be generated, right? Once this assessment is done, let me also show you how that assessment is going to look like. So I'm going to go and come under the assessment button because I already created one with the name Demo Contoso. And here you get the complete visibility into, what machines I can move, whether it's compatible or not. So for the example's sake, it breaks down your cost on compute storage. You can add the security component also, for example, Defender for Cloud, which I'm going to talk about later in the workshop. But this complete detail that you get about your environment and is it a right move or does it make sense financially as well as operationally to move that? And if you want, you can also export this assessment in case you want to keep it and show that to the decision makers. But this is the tool which will give you complete visibility and will not only discover your environment, will assess, and depending upon your environment, you can use the same appliance even to migrate your resources onto you into the Azure environment. So with this, we have successfully completed migration services, which is scenario number 1 for Contoso Incorporation. Let me go back to the slide deck and go to the next scenario, which is for Northwind Trader. To you, Ashraf.
All right. Okay, so we'll move on to the next scenario. We got Northwind Traders. This is an investment company with multiple branches in different countries. They have adopted a hybrid deployment model. As part of the cloud adoption, they have moved some of their critical workloads to Azure, which includes storage accounts and compute VMs. As part of the requirement, they need to be PCI DSS compliant and protect their storage from malware attacks. They've decided to adopt Microsoft Defender for Cloud for 3 storage accounts and 11 VMs. Pass it on to you, Girish. Please walk us through this case.
Thank you, Ashraf. If you look at nowadays, you cannot have any IT conversation without compliance and security in place. And in case you're dealing with a regulated industry, whether it's banking, financial sector, or government entity, that becomes even more important. And if you look at, in this case, Northwind Traders, they have decided to adopt a hybrid model, and they're going to utilize Defender for Cloud to protect your workloads. And especially in a hybrid kind of environment, it's even more important because you don't want to use different services to protect your on-premises as well as cloud environment. You want one bird's eye view of what is happening across your security portfolio. So you want to standardize your deployment, and that's where Defender for Cloud can come into play. So let's look into a little bit uh, more deeply what this service is. So first of all, Defender for Cloud is a cloud native application protection platform. Now, over time, there's been a lot of changes in this product. If you remember, Defender for Cloud used to be called Security Center and used to come in two tier. You had a free or standard. Now they have rebranded it, and the name of this is Defender for Cloud. And still in this case, you also get a free as well as paid tier. And paid tier, you see, this is the cloud native application protection platform, depending upon what kind of resource you're utilizing. But under the free tier, you also get your security score, which I generally call very similar to like you have a credit score, which tells you what is your financial viability. On the same line, you get a secure score from Defender for Cloud, which tells you how your subscription is behaving. And if you go and apply recommendation from the Defender for Cloud secure score, your score will go up. It means that you are implementing the recommendation. So it means that your environment is far more secure. But let's look into some of the specific services that comes as part of your cloud native application protection platform, starting with the compute. So you can utilize this for your VM scale set. If you're utilizing Kubernetes cluster, that can be also utilized. Whether it's Windows or Linux operating system, you can use Defender for Cloud for protecting that. In case you have invested into databases and storage, which in this case for Northwind traders, they are going to utilize, you can also make use of Defender for Cloud. Whether it's a SQL database as a service, MySQL, Maria database, or even blob storage, it can be protected by utilizing Defender for Cloud. And not only your cloud resources, if you have in this case, like for example, you have on-premises workload running, and even in third-party cloud, if your services are running in AWS and GCP, you can use Defender for Cloud, keep a track of what is happening across from the security standpoint across your workloads. So it gives you end-to-end visibility and helps you to achieve a standardized security posture regardless of where your workload is running. Now, talking about Defender for Server, now this service comes in two options. You have Server Plan 1 and Server Plan 2, and both these options are based on how many instances that you're trying to protect. Now, in this case, we're talking about 11 server, so Northwind traders can pick from any of these two. But my recommendation is, as you can see, that Defender for Server Plan 2 gives you more holistic protection. And if you compare that with Plan 1, it has some specific features such as adaptive network hardening as well as application control. If you look at any security vulnerability, most of the bad actors, they try to get into your computers by utilizing management port, whether it's port 22 or port 3389. By utilizing just-in-time VM access within Defender for Server Plan 2, you can keep a track of who is going to access, and you can also open this port only during specific time. So the administrator who has to do the work, they can finish off the administrative work, and after that work is done, that management port will be automatically closed. Not only that, you can also give access from specific virtual network as well as IP addresses. So that's part of just-in-time VM access, which is part of the server's plan too. Along with that, you also have file integrity monitoring. And if you look at, again, all these bad actors, they try to change your operating system settings as well as change the file registry. With file integrity monitoring, you can keep a track of what is happening across your registry. And in case there is any deviation from any standard procedure, you can create a workflow in which you can initiate maybe a logic app or a function app. You can also send a security alert to the security admin to keep a track of that. And not only that, you have integration with Defender for Endpoint, which can keep a track of in real time what is happening across your workloads. And let's say that there is any deviation which is happening on then if you see that there is any kind of attack which is happening on any of these workload, it will isolate that workload to prevent any lateral movement of these threads. So all these are part of Defender for Server plan. Now, which option to choose from is again will be your choice, but our recommendation is to pick Defender for Server Plan 2 because it gives you more holistic protection. And by the way, for Northwind traders, they need to be PCI compliant, and file integrity monitoring is one of the prerequisite in case you want to achieve a payment card industry compliance standard, which is pretty standard protocol requirement for any financial sector. Now, they also have some storage account they want to protect. Now, if you look at in the Azure portfolio, storage is one of the most popular services. And I would say one of the top three services which typically any partner or customer they start with. And Azure storage comes in different forms and shapes. If you're utilizing, let's say, storage attached to your virtual instances, we are talking about page blob storage or managed disk. If you want to store unstructured as well as structured data, then we're talking about Azure blob storage. You might be utilizing Azure File Storage, which supports both SMB as well as NFS protocol, very similar to an Azure file server or maybe an on-prem file server that you want to deploy. But it's a platform as a service, which you don't need to bother about managing and doing any updates. So that's also part of the Azure for the storage component within Microsoft Azure. Or let's say if you're dealing with big data analytics, then you can also make use of ADLS Gen 2, Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 storage, which also supports hierarchical namespace. But regardless of which storage option that you're going to utilize, you can make use of Defender for storage. And by the way, this company has 3 storage account, which they want to protect it. And I'm going to show you actually on the portal in a moment. But the enablement is just by utilizing one click. You don't need to do any tedious configuration. It's a one-click enablement, and Defender for Storage will be enabled for it. You can also have security alert configured. So in case there is any malware detected, a security alert will be sent as an email to an administrator. And you can also create a workflow by utilizing maybe a Azure Function app or a Logic app to automate the response. And optionally, if you want, you can also send the logs from Defender for Storage to a Sentinel, which is an event management solution. So it's an end-to-end protection. And not only that, recently they have also initiated or they have also enabled what you call real-time malware detection. So in case there is a malicious actor who is trying to upload a malware infected file in an Azure blob storage, it will delete that file in real time, but still give you the capability of restoring in case you want to do further analysis. But that's also part of Defender for Storage to give you complete not only visibility, but protection in real time too. So let's look into now how this service is going to cost for Northwind traders. And for that, I'm going to flip over again to the Azure pricing calculator. I can go, if you want, under the security tab from the left plate and search for Defender for Cloud. So you can see it's right over here, the first option. Let's go and click on Add to Estimate. Pick the region of your choice. I'm going to utilize Canada Central. And you can see that you have Cloud Security Posture Management. But in this case, we are talking about specific workload protection. So let me pick that. And Northwind traders, they have 11 machines that they want to protect. And as you can see that this is based on per instance and for how long this is running. So that's the cost for this. And they also have a storage account and actually 3 storage account that they want to protect. So let me also add that. And there are 2 components to this. So one is the cost of the storage account. And in case you also want to enable malware scanning, which is based on how much data will be scanned. For this example, I'm going to pick, let's say, 1 terabyte. And this is your cost going to be to implement Defender for Cloud for Northwind traders for 11 machines, as well as just 3 storage account, right? And again, very similar to the first option, you can export it in an Excel sheet. You can save it for your future reference, or you can also generate a URL, which you can share that with your end customer. So let me now go and show you on the Azure portal how this implementation is going to look like. Let's go to the same subscription. And I'm going to search for Defender for Cloud in the global search bar. All right, so as you can see, this gives me complete visibility of my workloads. So I have my Azure subscription, assess resources, right? Security alerts. So all these things, it's a gold mine for any security administrator rather than juggling between different interfaces. It gives you just single pane of glass where you can manage everything. And as I mentioned that out of the box, you get your security posture. At this stage, I'm getting my security score to be 13%, which is pretty low, but I can also go and apply my recommendation. And as I go and apply my recommendation, my secure score will go up, right? But the real power of this is coming from by going into cloud native application protection platform. And for that, I can go under the management. And let me just go and expand environment settings. Let's go and pick my subscription. And this is what I was talking about, cloud workload protection. So you can see right now my Defender for Server plan is in switched off state. I can always go and switch it on. And I can go change plan. By default, it's going to take the plan 2. But if you want plan 2 is overkill, you can always go and change it to plan 1. And you can see these are the differences between the two. For example, just-in-time VM access, file integrity monitoring, all these things are not part of the plan 1, but because they need to be PCI compliant, they need to go with the plan 2 in this case. So you can go and click on the confirm button that will enable this service for them. So that's for the Defender for Server plan, but they also have storage account, as I mentioned. You can always go and enable it from here if you want, but I can also show you another because you can go at the resource level too. So I'm going to go into specific storage account. So these are all the storage accounts that I have in my environment. So let's take example of the storage account. And as you can see on the left side of the blade under security and networking, I can go and enable Microsoft Defender for Cloud. So let's go, and if I go and expand on the settings button, you can see that there are two cost components. One is the cost for the Defender for storage, and also in case you want to enable the malware scanning, which is based on how many gigs it's going to scan. So let's click on the save button. So it's going to enable this service. Okay, so the service was enabled. And once this service is enabled, let me go on the settings button. Make sure that you also enable soft delete malicious blobs, right? So let me click on the save button. Now this is going to, because previously before, actually this is one of the new feature which has come up in Defender for Storage, because previously what you have to do is you need to create maybe attribute based access control. So even somebody even had access, they won't be able to download any file or anything from the blob storage in case any malware is detected. But then you have to create maybe policies and it becomes a little bit cumbersome. Security admins, anyhow, they have a lot of on their plate. But what this is going to do is going to protect your storage account in real time in case any malware is detected. And one more thing that you can do is actually, let me show you. I'm going to go to the container button. And I have one container. And in case there is a malware which is detected, it will also show you in the active and deleted blob. And for some reason, let's say that you need to re-enable that for further analysis, you can also do that too, right? And you can always change for how long you want to have that, because by default, your soft delete is for 7 days. That's a default, but you can go and extend that to up to 365 days. So that's the way you're going to enable Defender for Cloud and also protect your storage account from any malware infection. But let me show you one more thing, which I forgot to show you. I'm going to go back to the Defender for Cloud button. Talking about PCI compliance, because they're into financial industry and they need to be compliant with that. Let me go into the security policy. Because as you know, in most of the organization, there is only one administrator, which is wearing different hats. So he or may not know what are the what are the security requirements, what are the compliance requirements to be PCI compliant. So this Defender for Cloud service will also help you analyze your environment, and you can go and switch it on. So it's going to analyze your environment uh, based on this protocol, and then also make recommendation for you that in case you're not satisfying. And this can be shared maybe with a compliance officer who is trying to analyze your environment to make sure that it's compliant. But let me also give you an idea about how this compliance report will look like. So I have downloaded one a default report. So this gives you an executive summary, as you can see. And as I said, this can be shared with the compliance officer. So this gives you resource by resource breakdown of if your environment is compliant or not. Did it pass the control? And if it's not, what you need to do in order to implement this. So this is a great way of keeping a track of your subscription, whether it's HIPAA compliant or SOC compliant or maybe PCI compliant. So this is an example I just wanted to show you. And if you want, you can also create your own standard. Let's say that you want to create your own standard. You can also go and click on the customize standard, and you can give it a name. You can pick whatever recommendations you want, and then your environment will be analyzed based on this customized standard that you have created. But with this way, Northwind traders will be rest assured that their environment is fully protected and it's PCI compliant. So with this, we have also successfully completed scenario number 2. Now let's go back to the third and final scenario, which is for Woodgrove Bank. Over to you, Ashraf.
Thank you. Folks, also a reminder, if you have any questions, please drop these in the chat and we'll get to it right after the third and final scenario. So Woodgrove Bank, with over 300 employees, provides financial solutions for their large customer base. They have 200 mortgage agents and 100 engineers. Mortgage agents require access to customized applications to perform their daily work. On the other hand, the engineering team also needs access to specific applications. They currently provide virtual desktops using RDS services for all their employees. Infrastructure challenges and server renewal coming up, they are exploring options to replacing aging RDS environment and looking at AVD to solve critical challenges related to security and cost. After running tests with their team internally, they have shared the following requirements. So for mortgage agents, about 200 light users will be using Windows 11 and standard storage. Engineering users, we have 100 medium users. We'll also be using Windows 11 and premium storage, and a total of 1 TB of storage required for user profiles. Take it away, Girish.
Thank you, Ashraf. Another very popular services, and this is one of the go-to services when it comes to VDI deployment. Let me take you back when this COVID situation happened, right? And if you remember, a lot of companies, they went out of business because they didn't have the means to support remote workforce, because the offices were closed and the employees were not able to go physically, and they were not able to access the application. And even in certain cases, companies which thought they had all the means to support remote workforce, they were not able to provide this service in a secured manner. So what is the solution? Now, if you've been utilizing remote desktop services traditionally from Microsoft, we have a lot of partners. We continues to do that, and it's been pretty popular. People, they are still utilizing in on-premises, and not only on-premises, they have been also utilizing this in Azure too, and they're pretty popular. But in case we are transitioning to cloud, maybe there is a better way of deploying this, and you want to have something which is cloud native. And if you look at traditionally, and if you compare RDS versus an AVD, In any remote desktop services, you have to deploy a lot of server roles, whether it's gateway services, connection broker, diagnostic services, and all these things needs to be managed by an administrator. So it can sometimes get really challenging. So what options you have? And that's where Azure Virtual Desktop will come into play, because all these traditional server roles that you go and deploy, all these things are managed by Microsoft in the backend. So AVD can be looked into a combination of both PaaS as well as an IaaS service, because all these services or servers which I mentioned are managed by Microsoft in the backend. The only thing that you need to worry about or need to manage are the application which needs to be accessed by your users and the session hosts which are going to be deployed on which these applications are going to be deployed. And when it comes to identity, you can use Entra ID, which is, by the way, default services for Microsoft Cloud, whether you're utilizing Microsoft 365, Dynamics 365, or in Azure, that's your default service for cloud identity. And when it comes to user profiling, you're going to use Azure Files. Azure Files, which, as I mentioned, is a platform as a service, which also comes in different tiers. You can pick from transactional optimize, hot, cool, or even premium tier. Or optionally, if you want to, you can also utilize third-party services such as NetApp files. But the good thing is that because it's a PaaS offering, you don't need to manage and all your user profiles will be stored. And behind the scene, the technology which is going to be utilized for storing these user profiles will be FS Logic, which is going to be part of your licensing. But from the deployment and from management perspective, a lot of traditional server roles will be managed by Microsoft, thus reducing your management requirements when it comes to AVD. So now let's look into some of the terminology that will come and associate with Azure Virtual Desktop environment. Now, if you look at Azure Resource Manager, that's the deployment and the control plane. And if you've been following AVD journey, there's been a lot of changes. It used to be called WVD before, Windows Virtual Desktop. They have rebranded as AVD. But in the WVD era, it used to be classic model of deployment. And personally, I didn't like it because all these different resources which get deployed needs to be managed in silos. With Azure Resource Manager, AVD is a first-party service. It means you can manage this through resource group. You can utilize Azure Portal, PowerShell, or even REST API in order to manage all these different resources which get deployed. So great way of managing your services. Now let's talk about some of the as I said, terminology that will be associated. So in the top of the hierarchy for this deployment sits the subscription. Subscription is nothing but a billing entity. You might have heard of different kind of subscription. For example, if you're talking about from the indirect partner category, it used to be called CSP, which is now NCE or New Commerce Experience subscription. But there's also pay as you go or EA. These are nothing but different subscription which Microsoft unlocks. When you go and create resources, that's where your cost is going to come to your subscription. Now, if you are a managed service provider and you want to manage different tenants, different subscription, otherwise, you have to go and provide credentials for each and every subscription. With Azure Lighthouse, it gives you one single interface where you can manage all these different tenants and different customer right from your tenant. Now, underneath the subscription sits the host pool. Now, these are the one which is going to host the session host. Now, these session hosts are nothing but your Azure virtual machines where your Azure virtual desktop service is enabled. And these are the session hosts to which all these different users to which the access has been given is going to establish a session. Now, host pool can be divided into two types. You have personal and you have pooled host pool. In personal host pool, you have one-to-one relation. It means every user will have its own dedicated machine. In a pooled environment, multiple users will be accessing the same machine. Now, which option to go for will be part of the architecture and design and important consideration, not only from the user performance perspective, but also ultimately how much cost you're going to come. But important point to remember here that there are two types of host pool. One is personal, and the other one is pool kind of host pool. Now, the second in the category is the application group, which is logical grouping of your applications. And very similar to host pool, this is also comes in two type. You have a desktop application group in which you give a full desktop kind of experience to your end user. And then you have remote application group in which only specific applications are unlocked to specific groups and user. And then you have workspaces, which is logical grouping of your application group. Now, every application group needs to be associated with a workspace so that the user which has been given access to an application, they can go and see those applications. But these are the three terminology typically you're going to associate with any Azure Virtual Desktop deployment. Now, for the Woodgrove Bank, the good thing is they have gone through a POC. And based on the POC, they have two kind of requirement. One requirement is for the mortgage agent, and then they have support engineers. So let's look at how much is going to cost them when they go and deploy the service. For that, again, I'm going to go to the Azure pricing calculator. Let me go under the compute button. And if you want, you can go and search for Azure Virtual Desktop, but you can also go and add this to the estimate here. Now, for the first option I'm going to create is for the mortgage agent. Region going to be Canada Central. And the requirement is for 200 light user. Light is basically, it means that they don't need any compute intensive kind of workload. And requirement is 200, so I'm going to change it over here. And I'm going to say that, they need a constant availability just for the simplicity's sake. So assuming this is running 730 hours, by the way, you can also schedule it, or you can also apply reservation if you want. And the recommendation is that you use this workload D4S V5, and they need to go and utilize standard storage for this. So I'm also going to add, in this case, standard HDD, and they're going to have 10 disk here, right? So that's second component. And for the user profiles, they can make use of Azure files. Let me see if that option is here. Right over here, right? And the storage requirement is 1 terabyte. So I'm going to add this too. And so this completes for the mortgage agent, but they also have the support engineers. So let me add one more line here. And again, they need a pool kind of deployment, and they'll need a little bit more power. So I'm going to go workload type as medium with constant availability. And the number of support engineers we're talking about is 100. And the storage going to be premium here. And let's also add the user profile storage. And now I can save this estimate. Just want to point out one more thing, that there are going to be two cost components. So this is the Azure cost you're going to get for this deployment. There's also a license prerequisite. So in case you're utilizing, let's say, a business premium E3, E5, it means that you already have the rights to use Azure Virtual Desktop, which we see quite common. A lot of people, they adopt Microsoft 365 before. So if you have any of those license, you already have the rights to use Azure Virtual Desktop. But this is going to be a compute cost, which you can again save it, export it, and share that with your end customer. So now let me also show you how this is going to look like when it comes to deploying these resources on Azure. And for that, again, I'm going to go to the Azure portal. Let's try to search for Azure Virtual Desktop. right? That's one way of doing it. Otherwise, you can also expand these three lines. You can go to the All Services button, and you can see all the categories on the left side. Because it's a compute service, it should be somewhere here, the Azure Virtual Desktop. And what you can do is once you locate this service, you can also click on this star button, and you can see right over here. And once you do that, it will pin this under the favorite for you, right? So it will show you under all services. That's another way of accessing this. So I'm on the Azure Virtual Desktop. The first thing that you're going to do is to create a host pool. And that's where your session host is going to sit. And then you need to fill some information such as which subscription you want to go and deploy. Resource group is your logical container where all your resources from virtual network, session host, workspaces, all those things going to go and get deployed. You can give the name for the host pool. Your location will be in Canada Central. You can pick what kind of app group type. I want to give them a full desktop kind of experience. So let's pick a desktop, but you can pick between desktop and remote app. And it's going to be pool kind of environment. So I don't want to give any one-to-one machine. It'll be shared among multiple users. And you can also pick load balancing algorithm. You can pick from breadth first or depth first. That's also one option. You can specify how many max you want to go per session host. And going to the next button here, you can add what kind of machines you want, right? Depending upon your region of choice, the type of machines might differ because it all depends upon the capacity on your data center. You can also build redundancy by picking between availability zones or availability sets. You can pick the default image from the marketplace gallery if you want, but you can also create your own image, load all the application, and you can also create a machine from there. In this case, it's utilizing D2AS V5, but you can always go and tweak it as per your requirement, right? But as I mentioned, depending upon which data center you're trying to cater, you need to pick one. But once this get deployed, let me show you. I've already deployed one host pool, as you can see right over here, under what location, subscription, host pool type. You also get your application group, workspaces. You can configure a scaling plan. If you want to have app attached, you can do that too, which is basically containerization of your application. And you can also give access to specific users or groups in your environment, right? So it's pretty user friendly in case how you want to manage all these things. But with this, all these different users, they can access it from their office location. If you want to give them remote access, they can be from coffee shop. And you can club all these security requirements such as multi-factor authentication, conditional access policy. All these things can be enabled to make sure that your environment is protected and only authorized user are only given access to these applications and resources. So with this, we also have completed scenario number 3, which is the VDI deployment for Woodgrove Bank. Let me go back to the deck. And let me just also briefly talk about some of the cost optimization options that you have available. So as you know that in Azure, you are charged for how long your workloads are running. So important consideration in any of these deployments, not only just restricted to the three scenarios which we talked about. Right sizing of your machine is important because that's your majority of your cost is going to come from. And Azure Migrate Assessment give you performance-based assessment of what should be the right node that you should be utilizing in Azure. Then you can use either reserve instances or saving plan. These are two options available when it comes to reducing your overall cost. You can use one or the other, or you can also use combination of both these two in your environment. I see a lot of customers, they utilize both. Which one to go for? I will say have a discussion with us. We can look into your subscription, what options. But the good thing is that you can save up to 50 to 60% on an average on your compute, depending upon how long you want to reserve it for. Hybrid benefit, in case you want to utilize, let's say, if you have on-premises software assurance, You can bring your license and make utilize of hybrid benefit, another great way of saving money. And then maybe spot instances for test and dev kind of environment can be also utilized. But certain other things can be looked into. Maybe you want to automate or schedule your workloads to start and stop at different time, or even you want to transition maybe in certain cases after you settle down in your Azure environment and transitioning to a PaaS offering such as web app services or SQL database as a service might also save some money in the long run for you. So some of the cost optimization tips that you can go and implement in your environment. With this, if there's any question, Ashraf, anybody has, happy to take that
No,
now.
I don't see anything in the chat. So, folks, if you have a question, this is last call for questions. Please put that in the chat. Uh, Otherwise, we'll interpret this as a job well done. Okay. All right, so I guess we can wrap up this session. Hopefully, we've clarified how Azure can support your modernization goals, whether that's moving workloads to the cloud, improving security and compliance, or enabling flexible and secure virtual desktops for your customers. Thank you, Girish, for walking us through the different use cases and providing these valuable insights. We'll be sharing today's material with everyone. If you have follow-up questions or would like to explore how today's scenarios apply to your own customer environments, please feel free to reach out to your Azure representative at Ingram Micro. If you don't know who your Azure representative is, you can email azurecanada@ingrammicro.com and we'll connect you with your dedicated resource. So that brings us to, oh, we have a question in the chat. What do you think about Azure File directly integrated with Entra ID?
Yeah, a lot of customers, they utilize Azure Files with Entra ID. Not only that, you can also integrate, let's say, Azure Files have a lot of case scenarios, right? Not only just native cloud. In case you want to use, if you're running short of capacity in your on-premises file server, you can also offload some data into Azure Files, so it can be used in conjunction for both. But not only that, Azure File Storage can be also integrated with the Active Directory domain services. So a lot of case scenarios, depending upon what your environment is. I know that one of the asks maybe is because of the limitations in terms of how Entra ID works with Azure File Storage and the access controls. I think that's maybe we can discuss this offline. But yeah, Azure File Storage can be integrated with Entra ID only, or maybe it can be also integrated with the Active Directory domain services, which can be maybe sitting on premises or even just in native cloud too.
Awesome. Thank you. So that brings us to the end of today's session. Thank you again for your time, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you, team.
Thanks, Dean.